All right, buckle up, because survive. The island chapter 4 is where things get seriously intense. We're talking storms, mysterious creatures, whispers, and maybe even the island itself getting in on the action.
Yeah, it's a real turning point in the game. You can feel the tension ratcheting up with every page.
Exactly.
Hmm.
We left off with 25 players, and after chapter 3, they're scattered, vulnerable, and facing some seriously tough choices.
It's like the game shifted from individual survival to the consequences of group dynamics. Alliances are forming, rivalries are simmering, and the weight of those marked by that bone dust circle is impacting everyone around them.
Okay, so let's break down chapter 4 piece by piece,
Hmm.
starting with Andrea and her close call on the beach. She was the one who ran towards that shadowy figure, remember?
No.
While everyone else was heading for the jungle.
Right, and that impulsiveness almost cost her. In part one, the grip of fear, the storm is raging. This terrifying figure seems to warp reality around her, and we're left wondering if she's even survived.
Talk about a cliffhanger. It makes you realize how vulnerable they all are to forces they don't understand. Then we jump to Graham's experience in the void after being struck by lightning. A void. What is that? Like another dimension.
That's what it seems like. In part two, Visions and Saviors, Graham describes this chasm of non existence where he has to choose between light and deeper darkness. Knowing Graham and his obsession with the island's secrets, he picks the darkness and gets bombarded with disturbing images and sounds.
That's so Graham always diving headfirst into the unknown. It really highlights the psychological impact of this island, doesn't it? How it messes with your senses and perception of reality.
Absolutely. And while this is happening, Ian, who witnessed Graham's fall, makes a split-second decision to climb down from the mast and try to rescue him. It's a heroic move, especially for someone who's been so focused on competition.
This is where it gets really interesting because Ian's actions make you reevaluate his character. Is he truly selfless, or is there a strategy behind this seemingly heroic act? After all, he does need allies in this game.
Great point. It could be a calculated move to secure Graham's loyalty. It's a brilliant tactic, especially if Ian can play the savior role to gain an advantage. And just as they make it to shore, the ship sinks beneath the waves, leaving them stranded with the jungle looming behind them.
Talk about a visual. It's like the island itself is closing in on them. And speaking of facing danger, we cut to Jordan, our lone wolf finally coming face to face with that mysterious figure he's been following.
Right, and it turns out to be a woman speaking a language he doesn't understand. In part three, face to face, this throws a wrench in his plans. Now he has to figure out if she's a threat, a potential ally, or something else entirely.
It's a classic survive. The island twist adding a layer of intrigue to the game. Is she another player? Is there some sort of secret society forming? And then, true to his cautious nature, Jordan chooses to retreat.
It's a classic Jordan move. Assess, calculate, and minimize risk. He's all about strategic retreats, and it's kept him alive this long. But this encounter leaves us wondering if he'll try to find her again or focus on finding less hostile players.
So we have one player facing a potential supernatural entity, another possibly playing the hero for strategic gain, and a third dealing with the mystery of this woman. And as if that wasn't enough, we cut to Jim and Travis, who are literally caught between a storm and a fang.
Exactly. In part four, between Storm and Fang, they're running through the jungle when they come face to face with this terrifying canine creature, bigger than any dog with glowing eyes. It's like something straight out of a horror movie.
And these two, being all about strength and action, decide to fight it.
Uh-huh.
Typical Jim and Travis never backing down from a challenge. But it makes you wonder, is their bravado going to get the best of them? Are they underestimating the island and its creatures?
It's a classic case of fight or flight, and they choose to stand their ground. We don't know the outcome yet, but it's definitely going to be a memorable encounter. And while these two are gearing up for a brawl, Chris, Jill, and Mayoli stumble into a cave system and find themselves in a whole different kind of danger zone.
This is part 5, the Obsidian Labyrinth, right? It's described as this visually stunning chamber with smooth black walls reflecting the stormlight. It's like something out of an Indiana Jones movie with hidden paths leading off into darkness.
And they each have to choose a path. The Whispering Path, the Shifting Wall, the Bloodwood Trail, or the Path of Silence. Each one is unsettling and hints at hidden dangers. Chris and Jill, driven by their desire for answers, choose the Whispering Path.
Makes sense for Chris always wanting to be in the thick of things.
Hmm.
But Jill is usually more cautious, Do you think she's following Chris's lead, or is there something else drawing her to that specific path?
It's a good question. Perhaps she sees an opportunity to learn from Chris's boldness, or maybe she's hoping to temper his impulsiveness. And then we have Maoli, who opts for the shifting wall that suggests she's either incredibly brave or a little reckless.
Maybe she's trusting her intuition. After all, this game isn't just about physical strength. It's about mental agility and reading the situation.
Absolutely. And while these three venture deeper into the labyrinth, we cut back to the players who stayed on the ship, Cowan, Jordana, Andrew, and Lauren. They're the ones who were marked by that bone dust circle, and the ship is now sinking.
Talk about bad timing. In Part 6, Marked for the Deep, they're trapped in the hole. Water's pouring in, and they have to choose between escaping or trying to revive Sarah M., who's still unconscious after being marked.
It's a desperate situation, and their choices reveal a lot about their priorities. Andrew, ever the pragmatist, chooses to climb to the main deck, hoping to escape the sinking ship. The others focus on reviving Sarah M., perhaps hoping she holds the key to surviving the curse.
It's a classic dilemma. Do you prioritize immediate survival or risk it all for knowledge and a chance at understanding the bigger picture? It's fascinating to see how different players approach this challenge. And then we have Sarah M. herself presented with a choice: fight to wake up or surrender to sleep. She chooses to sleep.
That's a chilling decision. Is she giving up? Or is it a way of accepting the curse of trying to understand it from within? We're left wondering if she'll succumb to the curse, drown, or maybe something even worse.
While this group faces a watery grave, Chelsea and Peter find themselves trapped in another kind of tomb, a spiral cavern deep beneath the island.
In Part 7, the Spiral Cavern, they're investigating that strange stone slab when a tree falls, sealing the entrance, leaving them with the spiraling staircase leading down into darkness. Talk about claustrophobic. It's like the island itself is trapping them, forcing them to confront whatever lies below.
And of course, Chelsea, being the analytical one, focuses on deciphering the glowing glyphs on the walls, while Peter, trusting his gut, decides to descend the staircase into the unknown.
Two very different approaches, but both driven by that same thirst for knowledge. It highlights the duality of survival, the need to be both analytical and intuitive to balance logic with instinct.
It's what makes this game so compelling. Okay, buckle up, because things take a dark turn with Michelle's story in Part 8, At the Storm's Heart.
She witnesses Kate in the clearing, seemingly possessed, embracing the storm. It's a terrifying sight, and Michelle, being the pragmatic leader that she is, chooses to run.
I don't blame her. It's like whatever Kate encountered out there broke something inside her. And it raises so many questions. Is the island influencing Kate? Is it driving her mad?
It's definitely a possibility. We've seen how the island messes with the players' minds, how it pushes them to their limits. And then we shift to the group that fled the sinking ship. Boone, Brian Rosendo, Tufana, Mayo, Mike, and Paul. And the tension between those marked and those who aren't becomes palpable.
Right. In Part 9, Flight from the Wreck, we see Tufana, Mayo, Mike, and Paul becoming distant, almost like they're in a trance. It's clear the curse is starting to affect them, but how? What's it doing to them?
We don't know the specifics yet, but there's this unsettling sense that the island is exerting control over them. And then, boom, they're presented with a choice. Follow the coastline, seek solitude, or obey the whispers.
Right, whispers. What kind of whispers?
This is where it gets creepy. Only those who are marked can hear these whispers, and they're being called back to the ship's resting place. It's like the island is trying to divide them, lure them back to its depths.
Okay, that's seriously unsettling. So who falls for it?
Tufana and Paul. They're drawn to the ship despite the danger, as if they no longer have a choice. It really highlights the insidious nature of the island's power, how it can manipulate those who are vulnerable. Boone and Mayo choose to stick together and follow the coastline. Brian, Mike, and Rosendo decide to seek solitude, each for their own reasons. It seems like the group is fracturing, with the curse driving a wedge between them.
And we still don't know what happened to Kate, who was last seen running into the jungle, seemingly possessed by some unseen force. Talk about a cliffhanger.
And that brings us to Part 10, The Shadows Claim, where we rejoin Kate in the heart of the storm. She's running terrified from something she sees in her mind, a figure with a face contorted in rage.
So we're talking full-on horror movie territory now.
Yeah.
The storm, the phantom, the desperate flight through the jungle. What happens to Kate?
She makes it to the beach, collapses, and then the chapter ends. We're left hanging, wondering if she's escaped, if she's safe, or if something worse is waiting for her. It's a classic survive. The island tactic, leave the audience on the edge of their seats, desperate to know what happens next.
All right, let's shift back to Andrea, who we last saw be enveloped by darkness on the beach. Is she gone? Did that creature get her?
Not so fast. In Part 11, a black feast Andrea is pulled back from the brink by a scream. Another player, Kate, stumbles onto the beach terrified, and that's when things get truly bizarre.
So Kate was the one screaming. But what was she running from? And what about Andrea? Did she manage to escape that creature?
The figure turns towards Kate, its form shifting, and Kate screams again louder this time. Then Silence Kate vanishes, the storm ends, and Andrea is left alone on the beach. It's a brutal, almost poetic ending to this part of the chapter.
Wow, that's intense. It's like the island itself decided to intervene to claim Kate for some unknown purpose. And it leaves us with so many questions. What happened to Kate? What will Andrea do now? Is anyone truly safe on this island?
It's a brilliant setup for the next chapter, right? Players are scattered, some struggling with the curse, others facing down terrifying creatures and unseen forces, and we're left wondering who will adapt, who will break, and who will become another cautionary tale whispered on the wind.
Okay, so we've covered the main events of Chapter 4, but now it's time to dive into the player spotlight. We have 25 players left, each with their own strategies and motivations. Let's analyze their decisions and try to predict who's in the best position to survive and who might be headed for a tragic end.
Let's start with Andrea. She's a wild card, isn't she? Impulsive, brave to the point of recklessness, always driven by curiosity.
Yeah, who runs towards a shadowy figure on a stormy beach? Most players would have bolted the other way. But that's Andrea. She wants to understand the island, even if it means getting up close and personal with its darker side.
And that's what makes her dangerous, both to herself and potentially to others. She's not afraid to take risks to push boundaries, and with her resourcefulness, she'll probably find ways to adapt and survive even in the most challenging situations.
Speaking of dangerous, let's talk about Andrew. His decision to stay on that sinking ship, even though he was cursed, was a bold move. And now he's trying to climb to the main deck, even though it's a long shot.
It's a fascinating shift. We saw glimpses of selfishness in his earlier choices, but now he's embracing that every man for himself mentality. Remember, his primary skill is charisma.
Oh, yeah?
He could be planning to use that charm to manipulate others, to secure his own survival, even if it means throwing someone else overboard.
That's a chilling thought. He might be the one to watch out for as the game progresses.
Oh,
Okay, on to someone a bit more level-headed. At least for now, Boone. He's been cautious, strategic, even a little ruthless. But he's also shown a sense of responsibility, especially toward Brian and Rosendo.
Right. He initially fled the ship to protect himself, but now he's choosing to stick with Mayo and head back to the beach, possibly to find the others who are marked. He's got intelligence on his side, so he's probably analyzing the situation, trying to figure out the best way to navigate the island's dangers, and maybe even exploit the curse to his advantage.
I can totally see him playing the long game, carefully observing everyone and waiting for the right moment to strike. Now, Brian is a bit more of a mystery. He chose to seek solitude in the jungle without giving a reason. What's his strategy? Laying low, observing from the shadows.
It's hard to say for sure. He's intelligent, observant, and seems to be avoiding unnecessary risks. Maybe he's trying to stay under the radar, gather information, and make his move when the time is right. He could be a dark horse in this game.
I wouldn't count him out just yet.
Um,
All right, let's move on to a pair that are literally digging deep into the island's mysteries. Chelsea and Peter trapped in that spiral cavern. Chelsea's trying to decipher those glowing glyphs, which makes total sense for her analytical mind.
Exactly. She's methodical, resourceful, and driven by a need to make sense of the chaos. If anyone can crack the code of those glyphs, it's Chelsea. The core is, what will those glyphs reveal? Will it be a helpful clue, a warning, or something more sinister?
And while she's focused on the intellectual puzzle, Peter's gone full Indiana Jones and decided to descend the spiral staircase. Trusting his gut over logic. Do you think he's going to find some ancient artifact down there? A hidden chamber?
Peter's all about intuition and trusting his instincts. He's also incredibly resourceful. So whatever he finds down there, he'll likely find a way to use it to his advantage. It's a risky move, but high risk often equals high reward in this game.
So true. Okay, let's check in on Chris and Jill, who chose the whispering path in the labyrinth. They both seem drawn to the promise of secrets. Do you think they're forming an alliance?
It's definitely a possibility. Chris is all about strength and action, while Jill is resourceful and focused on survival. They could be a formidable duo if they can learn to work together, but alliances can be fragile in this game, especially when the island itself seems to be trying to divide them.
And speaking of fragile alliances, let's talk about the group on the sinking ship, Cowan, Jordana, and Lauren. They decided to try and revive Sarah M., who's still unconscious after being marked. Do you think they made the right call?
It's a tough one. Waking Sarah M. could provide valuable insights, maybe even a clue about breaking the curse. But it's also a gamble. They're in a sinking ship, time is running out, and they don't know if she'll even be coherent when she wakes up.
Talk about a high-pressure situation.
yeah.
Okay, we can't forget about Graham, who's miraculously alive after being struck by lightning. He's chosen to search for the wreckage of the ship. Do you think he's hoping to salvage supplies, or is there something more to his plan?
Graham's cunning, always thinking a few steps ahead. He knows that ship likely contained valuable resources tools and maybe even clues about the island. He could be using this as an opportunity to gain an edge over the other players.
All right, now on to a player who's keeping a low profile, Ian. He went silent after fleeing into the jungle. Do you think he regrets trying to save Graham?
Ian's a complex character. He's shown us he can be both selfish and selfless, competitive and compassionate. Perhaps he's realized that surviving on this island requires a delicate balance of all those traits. He might be reassessing his strategy, trying to figure out who to trust and how to position himself for the long game.
It's going to be interesting to see how he plays his cards. Now let's talk about a duo who are never afraid of a challenge, Jim and Travis. They're facing down that terrifying canine creature, and they seem pretty confident in their ability to win.
They're both physically strong and action-oriented, and they probably believe that 2 against 1 gives them an advantage. But they could be underestimating the creature's strength and ferocity. It's a risky move, and it could have serious consequences.
I just hope they have a plan beyond hit it really hard. Okay, back to Jordan, our lone wolf. He made the smart choice to retreat from that hostile woman in the jungle, but he's also expressed a desire to find other players. Is he going to try and find her again, or will he stick to his solo strategy?
Jordan's all about calculated risks. He knows the woman is out there, and he's probably weighing the pros and cons of approaching her again. He might try to negotiate, form an alliance, or gather more information before making a move, but he's not going to rush into anything, especially after that initial encounter.
All right, let's talk about Jordana. She's been another quiet player, choosing to stay on the sinking ship and help revive Sarah M. Do you think she's playing a strategic game, or is she just reacting to the situation?
Jordana's a bit of an enigma. We haven't gotten much insight into her motivations or strategies. Her actions suggest she's compassionate, but she could also be calculating, observing the other players, and aligning herself with those she perceives as strongest.
It's definitely hard to tell with her. Some players wear their intentions on their sleeves, while others keep their cards close to their chest. Okay, let's move on to a player who made a bold choice in the labyrinth, Mayoli. She chose the most mysterious path, the shifting wall. What do you think she's hoping to find?
Mayoli seems driven by a need to explore, to push boundaries. She might be seeking a deeper understanding of the island, even if it means facing danger. Perhaps she believes that the most dangerous path is also the most rewarding, leading to hidden knowledge or power.
It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy for sure. Okay, next up is Michelle. She chose to run from whatever Kate was running from, ending up back on the beach. Do you think she made the right call?
Michelle's a strong leader, but she's also pragmatic. She saw firsthand the psychological toll this island can take, and she's probably prioritizing her own safety and well-being. It was a smart move to retreat, regroup, and reassess the situation.
It makes you wonder, though, what was so terrifying that it made even Michelle run in fear? Okay, on to Mike, who's struggling with the effects of the curse and hearing voices drawing him back to the ship. And remember, he's carrying a toolbox, which could be a valuable asset or a dangerous weapon.
Mike's situation is worrisome. The curse seems to be amplifying his need for resources, his desire for control. His choice to seek solitude in the jungle suggests a struggle for self-preservation, battle against those whispers in his mind. But with that toolbox, he could be a danger to himself and others if he loses that battle.
It's a reminder that the curse isn't just a physical threat. It's messing with their minds, twisting their perceptions. Okay, what about Paul, who also succumbed to the whispers and chose to return to the ship's resting place?
Paul's motivations are more ambiguous. He seems to be embracing the game, the chaos, almost enjoying the ride. Is he truly losing control? Or is he making a calculated gamble, believing that aligning himself with the island's power will give him an advantage? It's hard to say.
It's like he's either going to become the island's champion or its next victim.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish up with Rosendo, who chose to seek solitude in the jungle, expressing distrust towards those affected by the curse. And let's not forget that map and key he found on the ship. Do you think he's going to go on a treasure hunt?
Rosendo is cunning, always looking for an angle. His distrust of the cursed players is understandable, but it could also isolate him, making him vulnerable. The map and key are definitely intriguing. They could point to a hidden objective, a deeper layer to the game that he's trying to solve on his own. It'll be interesting to see if he decides to share that information or keep it to himself.
Okay, we've covered all 25 players. It's incredible how each of them is reacting so differently to the challenges of this island, to the curse, and to each other. Where do you think all of this is heading? What's your big takeaway from Chapter 4? It feels like the game shifted from survive the island to survive each other, and the island itself is the mastermind.
Yeah, Chapter 4 definitely upped the ante in terms of psychological tension. It's not just about physical challenges anymore, it's about mental fortitude, trust, and the ability to resist manipulation. The island is playing mind games, and some players are more susceptible than others.
And that bone dust circle, I keep coming back to that. It's not just a random curse. It seems designed to sow discord, to turn the players against each other.
Yeah, the curse is like a catalyst, amplifying existing anxieties and creating new ones. And we see it manifesting differently in each player. Some are becoming more withdrawn, others more aggressive, and some seem to be losing touch with reality. It's like a social experiment gone wrong with the island as the puppet master.
And those whispers, they're the creepiest part. Only those who are marked can hear them, constantly reminding them of the ship of the curse. It's a brilliant way to keep them off balance, to sow paranoia and distrust. Do you think the whispers are supernatural, or is it a psychological effect of the curse?
Honestly, that's the question that keeps me up at night. The island is shrouded in mystery, and we know the game creator drew inspiration from sources that often blur the lines between reality and the supernatural. Are those whispers the island's voice, a malevolent entity lurking beneath the surface? Or is it all in their heads? A manifestation of their own fears and anxieties amplified by the curse. We don't have the answers yet. But it's a question that hangs over every decision, every interaction.
It's like we're watching a psychological thriller unfold with this added layer of wondering if there's a supernatural element at play. So where do you think this is all heading? Will the curse consume them all, or is it a way to break free?
If this chapter taught us anything, it's that the island rewards adaptability and cunning. Those who can read the situation, anticipate threats, and make alliances strategically will have a better chance of surviving. Those who cling to old patterns, who let fear or greed control them, they'll likely become victims of the island's game.
Okay, that's some insightful analysis.
Yeah.
As we move into Chapter 5, what are some things you think our listeners should be paying attention to? What clues or patterns might help us understand what's really going on?
Well, keep an eye on how the curse continues to affect those who are marked. Are their symptoms worsening? Are they banding together or turning against each other? Their actions could hold clues to the nature of the curse and its ultimate purpose.
Okay, well,
Pay close attention to the island itself. Is it reacting to certain actions? Are there patterns in its behavior? It might be possible to decipher its language to understand its motives and maybe even predict its next move.
interesting. So we need to look beyond the players and focus on the island as a character in itself.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of information Rosendo's map and key, the glyphs Chelsea is studying. Even seemingly insignificant details could hold vital clues to the island's secrets. In this game, knowledge is power, and it might be the key to survival.
That's great advice. Any final thoughts before we wrap up our deep dive into Chapter 4?
Just remember, the island is a master manipulator playing on your fears and desires. Trust your instincts, but be wary of those around you. Alliances shift like the tides, and even the closest bonds can be broken under pressure. Stay vigilant, question everything, and never underestimate the island's power.
That's our deep dive into Chapter 4 of Survive, the island. It was a wild ride through storms, creatures, whispers, and some seriously intense psychological warfare. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll unpack Chapter 5 and see who's left standing, and who's become another cautionary tale swallowed by the island's mysteries.